You can't go out playing golf having fun.
Fun. Senor, you've obviously never played Wingfoot.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
You've got to be kidding me, Vegas. On Monday night. There's my picks for this week. Now, if you want next week's picks, I can give you those by Friday.
What's going on, sports fans? Welcome to Week 12 of the Wingfoot Locks, brought to you by Wingfoot Sports. I hope that you all had a very pleasant Thanksgiving. I know that Boomer likes to be the last person to say, let us be the last to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. So we will say it now. I'm sure he'll say it on Monday Night Football during the fastest 3 minutes. Greg Hoyle, how you doing this week as your turkey hangover finally left you?
Full of turkey, wine, and all types of pies and pastries. So just trying to get the cardio in, right? Keep the heart healthy.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you burned a couple extra calories dealing with that Cowboys football game there. The NFC East proving to be the most exciting division in football.
Oh, yeah, right?
Hardly.
Hey, 2016, right? That's the worst case scenario when you're rooting for an arch nemesis, right? But you get a good number. I had it at 2.5, so felt pretty good when it was 20-16, and any sort of 3-point victory would have been in the bank for me. I like being able to lay 2.5, but it wasn't to be, right? You know, all the fake punts in the world. I think they were maybe he got like a wishbone. Maybe he got the end of the wishbone there and figured that one of these ridiculous 4th and whatevers was going to work. That was absurd.
So, from your own about 20-yard line there, you run a fake punt, Mike McCarthy. Not sure what he's doing, but honestly, has anybody looked worse than him this season in terms of coaching?
No.
Say what you want about the Cowboys. Their defenses looked atrocious, right? But the coaching has been just as awful as their team play has been overall. My favorite moment of that game, though, Greg, do you know what it was?
Favorite moment of the game?
Yes.
There were some pretty funny episodes of Andy Dalton just looking distraught.
No. It was a play by the Washington football team.
I don't know. You're gonna
Riverboat Ron ran the annexation of Puerto Rico from the Little Giants.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did, and he acknowledged it in a press conference. If you watch it's like I don't know. They were 5 yards short. It was in the red zone for for Washington going in. They get the ball, put it on the ground. It looks like they're doing a sweep right. J.D. McKissick stays there, picks it up, and just runs for 5 yards or 6 yards. I think he picked up the first down. Honestly, Ron Rivera was already a pretty cool guy being Riverboat Ron, because we love gamblers here, obviously, right, at Wingfoot. So, but that was, I love the Stones running the annexation of Puerto Rico.
I will resist the temptation to go back and watch it during this podcast. I'll maintain my focus, but it will be the first thing that I do before I get up out of this seat is go back and watch a real world. Oh man!
Yeah, it was fantastic. All right, so with that being
Danny O'Shea Chevrolet.
Oh man, listen, let's get to the weekly slate here on Sunday, because Thanksgiving the food was delicious. The football games were dry turkey, or maybe raw turkey is more appropriate. They were terrible this year, but that's okay. They were a little appetizer for this weekend, and we got a full slate ahead. And I want to start this week with the Tennessee Titans, because they are a team that I am off on again, and I have been very much back and forth on, but every week I seem to pick their game one way or the other. Last week we were on the Titans when they had the outright win as an underdog in overtime against the Ravens. This week they are getting 3 points as they visit the Indianapolis Colts. And Greg, I am on the Titans again this week. I say take the 3 points with the Titans, and here's why. First of all, I think in that first matchup between the two teams, what might have gotten lost on a lot of people is the fact that score in the second half was largely dependent on the special teams of the Titans. For some inexcusable reason, we talked about the punter and that situation last week. I don't know what Mike Vrabel was doing there, but the punting game seems to be back aligned, although they did go for it on fourth down a couple times in that game against the Ravens, which proved to be key in that one. But I think that they get that together. At the very least, they avoid the block kicks and the 17-yard punts in this one. The other thing that I think gets lost is how well the Tennessee Titans were running the ball against the Colts in that game. And in this game, Indianapolis is without DeForest Buckner. They're without another tackle who I forget at this time. Their linebacker Okereke is out for this one. All on the defensive end. I think that looms large for the Tennessee running game in this one. Add to that Jonathan Taylor out for this one with COVID, and their starting center Ryan Kelly going to be a no-go for this one. I think that the Tennessee defense gets a little bit more pressure here on Phillip Rivers. Look, I'm still not sold on either of these teams, right? I think that they're teams that haven't had really tough schedules. I think Tennessee has had tougher spots, which has led to some closer games for them, but you gotta beat who's on your schedule. That's pretty much it. And I think that Indianapolis, their best wins have come against bad teams. I don't think that they've beaten a really good team yet this season. And for that reason, I think that this week they end up covering the Tennessee Titans, end up covering. I think they can win this one outright. That little revenge factor, look, we don't believe in revenge really, but I'll take it in my pocket, if I got to look at it one way or the other. So I say take the Tennessee Titans plus the points in this one. Go ahead, Greg, what do you think?
It was Denico Autry, buddy.
Autry, yes.
That's the other.
I was so concentrating on Okereke. I wanted to channel my inner Jim Nance, as you said, for this one. So I wanted to concentrate on Okereke, and I forgot about Denico Autry. Hey, a solid player, man. That defense is really good for the Indianapolis Colts, but it starts up front because they don't blitz a lot, right? And so.
You want your D tackles to be ready to rock against Henry, right? So that's about the worst position you could be light in and have cluster injuries when you're going against Eric Henry. In that game again, we did our special teams segment of the year last week on that. That game was an actual game before those two, multiple kicking faux pas, right? So I think. Little revenge factor. You're going to get the 3 points. I don't think we need to get cute and talk about like an outright win or anything like that. We'll take the 3 because, it's a key number. But I mean, it's definitely
listen.
A game
wait a minute. I'm not trying to get cute with it. I'm just saying that it wouldn't shock me. Look, a little sprinkle on the money line. I was Tennessee. I had the money line last week against the Ravens here. Just a little sprinkle. It doesn't hurt. It makes you feel a little better when you got the underdog and they win outright. And I really think. Look, I think sometimes underdogs have no shot of winning outright. When we look at these games, whether the line's 3, 7, 10, I think a lot of these times you look at an underdog and that's not the spot where they're going to win outright. Tennessee could win this one outright. And yes, I will take it with the 3. But I might have just a little bit of on the money line action there because it makes me feel a little better. I feel like I was extra right if it happens.
Little ego boost for Joe.
Yeah.
I just don't at 150, which is around where it's at. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Is that the line there?
Chris Portente loves that line.
There you go. That one's for you there, Chris. So, last week when you get the 6.1, if you did a little sprinkle there, it's nice. You get a 2 for 1 usually when it's in that 5-6 area. So usually, 210, 215 area. So, I'm going with my 3 points. I'm going with the Titans. I feel like, we'd have to go to the tape here. I might have taken the Titans like 9 out of 12 weeks so far this year. But whatever. I like them this week. I think it's a good spot.
Listen, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Sometimes I think that you get a good read on a team, right? And some teams you have no read on. It happens from year to year, and you get off it. Look, the Atlanta Falcons have been a team that I feel like I've been on a roller coaster with the entire season, and I've hit a couple of them, but they've been so unpredictable. I really liked them last week against the Saints.
What happened to your You've had like an anti-betting on the Falcons thing. I didn't even realize that you were betting on the Falcons again. Like, you got to stop that.
Well, I know I did. For this goes back several seasons where I when the public was on them, I did not want any part of the Falcons. I still didn't want any part of the Falcons, but it felt like everybody was jumping off so rapidly that I wanted to get on them again because, you know, I think that helps. You know, actually, I heard a good line, or I read a good line, and I wish I could remember where it was this week, but because I'm big on fading the public, right? I do like to go with Vegas. However, somebody pointed out a very good and obvious point that if you're going to fade the public, you got to realize you're going with a side that gets plus 110. I don't get plus 110 the way Vegas does when I fade the public. And so that's really, you know, when you think about it from that point of view, you really want to make sure that if you are going to be contrarian, that you want to pick your spots very wisely there. So
Right.
A good observation, I think. With that being said, you know, we talked about the Falcons there. Last week they lost to the Saints, Taysom Hill making his debut at starting quarterback. This week they go up against the Broncos, the Saints that is, and Denver coming off an upset win against Miami, and Tua Tagovailoa got benched in that one in the fourth quarter. Ryan Fitzpatrick couldn't bring them back. So this week right now, I think the line in this one is Saints minus 6.5. But Greg, you have a play on the total here.
Yep, a little curveball there, going with two teams that play pretty good defense. I don't really like the quarterback play for either team. Taysom Hill definitely showed that completion percentage in the way that they ran the offense through him. Was a little surprising to me, but that even said, right, if you're putting up 24 points, I think that is the predicted amount of points. It's like 23 or 24 for the Saints this week, and it's like 17 and some change for the Broncos. So it's 43 points. I want to go under because I do want them to stick to the ground game. I think both teams are better when they're keeping the ball on the ground, establishing the run. They both have two solid running backs there. And, you know, like I don't think either quarterback is going to be sitting there wanting, the Broncos do not want Drew Lock to have to come back in these games and be slinging it all over the place. And if indeed he's in that situation again, I think the Saints defense is a lot different than like the Chargers defense, right, who he's able to make a comeback on. So I think it's going to be a much different situation. Both teams are going to keep it on the ground. So going to go under the 43 points at this point, and kind of hope that basically the scheme plays out as it is. And if they held the Falcons, now the Falcons just looked terrible last week. If they held the Falcons to that type of an effort, I think they could easily do that against the Broncos.
So a couple things. First of all, we got to acknowledge how wrong we were about Taysom Hill getting the start, and then Jameis Winston was going to come in at quarterback. We couldn't have been wrong on that one there.
Yeah. I backed off. I was looking into it, and I backed off at the end, and we would have lost on passing attempts, and also I think it was like 17 or 17 and a half. No, he only had 23, right? But I totally thought it was a rope-a-dope strategy. As a guy a little closer to game time, I felt less confident in that, but that doesn't help for people that are listening.
Right. Well, listen, I don't know. I don't think you ever tweeted it out. So
I haven't been tweeting much out. We got the live stream, so I'm not hitting up Twitter.
Yeah. The other thing from that game is Julio Jones made a go of it, man. He was having hamstring issues, I guess, the entirety of the game. Came up with a big catch for the Falcons there. But that defense for the Saints, I think, is underrated. It's really interesting with the Saints because they had early on in the season all those defensive pass interference calls against the secondary there. And we know, like, their secondary's pretty good. They have talented players on there. So I don't know what that was in terms of, was it just scheme? Were they just trying to be more physical? Is that what they were coaching up in practice and maybe we're just going a little too much, or maybe just some unfortunate flags in there, which cost them early on in the season? But obviously we know how talented they are. And I don't think they get enough credit for how good they are. And they seem to play a little bit inspired for Taysom Hill in there. They held the Falcons to 3 field goals, I think it was, in that one, and all of them in the first half. I think they pitched a shutout in the second half. So it was definitely an impressive effort by them. I think in that first game, when you get that quarterback in, it's a little bit easier to do. I think now in that second game, and you got to go to Mile High. And I think Denver's playing with a little bit of confidence here. Now, one thing to keep an eye on for this, I think Jerry Jeudy was listed as either questionable or doubtful for this one. I know he was dealing with an injury. And
still got him as questionable.
Okay, so he has been a huge target for Drew Lock, and honestly, one of the best rookie wide receivers this year. The crop of wide receivers was touted coming into the draft, and I think they have lived up to it so far. But that being said, with those running backs they have over there in Gordon and Lindsey, they are a different team when Lindsey is playing for Denver. That offense just feels a little bit different, and it feels like you have 2 like bell cow running backs in there, no matter who's getting the ball. So we saw that last week, and I think that should be the game plan this week, obviously, if they keep it on the ground. And so for that reason, I hear you on the under there. Mile High, get a little winded late in that one. The next game we're going to look at here, we're going to go with the New York Giants coming off their bye week as they take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Giants are very interesting because they have a chance to take over first place in the NFC East this week. If Philadelphia loses, the Giants win. They've beaten Washington twice. They get first place in the NFC East. Now, I think that, yes, talks about how terrible the NFC East has been this season, but I think it's also a little bit of a credit to Joe Judge and what he's been able to do to get these guys to buy in. That being said, they're playing here a Cincinnati team that I think was underrated most of the season, but that was with Joe Burrow at quarterback. Now he's out for the season. I think that team just has to be completely deflated in this one. And they're going with a third-string quarterback off the practice squad in Brandon Allen rather than Ryan Finley. Not that I think one is much of an upgrade over the other. No Joe Mixon in this one for the Bengals. I just don't see them getting up for this game. I think Joe Judge is a good enough coach where he's going to have these guys motivated and have a good game plan. I think they've been putting things together offensively. I know 5.5 or 6 points, depending on where you're getting it, is a lot of points, but I think this is a great spot for the Giants. And I think this week they go and they show that they're going to make a play for this division. I think they've been playing the best football in the division probably since that Thursday night game, even though they lost to the Eagles in that one. Yep. But they, obviously, I think the Eagles almost gave that game away. So I say lay the points with the Giants against the Bengals this week. What do you think?
Maybe Joe Judge stole some of those watermelons, and Mike McCarthy was just fresh out this week, and that's why they couldn't pull a W out on Thursday.
For those who don't know, Mike McCarthy's big motivational technique for the Cowboys before they beat the Vikings was to smash some watermelons in the locker room to get them really revved up and going.
Yeah, real cartoon-esque move. So that's what I want my coach doing. But we move on. So two things here, right? So everything he said, 100% true. For that reason, right, I like both the Giants, and I want to play against Cincinnati 2 ways. So we want to go for the Giants. You've got it at 6. I've got it at 5.5. But I also like the team total under 19.5 for the Bengals. So no Mixon, no Burrow, right? The team has to be deflated in that situation. It's not like it's like devastating. They're out of the playoff picture, but they're certainly out of relevancy, right? So their franchise quarterback's down. So now it's just about guys like trying to make the most out of the rest of their season, maybe flash here and there. But like if you're one of the wide receivers, which was their area of strength, right? Like how pumped can they be with whatever? Like where does Brandon Allen come from? I don't
he was basically a career backup, and I think the reason he's getting the start is because Zach Taylor was a coach with the Rams when he was there. And so he thinks he has some familiarity with the system, even though the guy's been on the practice squad the entirety of this year. I don't know why you don't just elevate him and make him the backup quarterback.
He's got no rhythm with the wide receivers as is. Like maybe Finley's getting, a couple of first team snaps or something like that. So under 19.5. Giants, everything that you've mentioned, on board with. And I'm also going to, my tease this week is going to be a 7-pointer. So the first half of that is going to be the Giants. Obviously, if you're getting them at like 6 or, I'm not sure if that number is threatening to go up at all. You would really only need like 6.5, but I'm going to do 7 because of the other end of it. So I am going to get the Giants plus the 1.5. I'm not like teasing through 0 here. I don't like to tease through 0. I'm teasing through 3. That's really the point of this. So you could do, if you have something else in mind that you wanted to do a 6-pointer, you could certainly make that work. But I'm rocking a 7-pointer. Due to the other leg of this.
And let's be perfectly honest here, right? Like, I think if the Bengals had been in the NFC East, they would probably be leading the division right now, right? So with Joe Burrow at quarterback. But this team is in the basement of their division, and they really have nothing to play for at this point.
Correct.
Yeah, I just think all the air has been coming out of the football for them right now. And we've seen them get blown out, right? They got blown out, I believe, by Pittsburgh. They got blown out by the Ravens. They've been blown out a couple times this year. And they throw the ball more than anybody in the game. I think there's a reason for that, obviously because they had the talented quarterback, but also because I think that quick passing game and the wide receivers that they have there were the strength of the team, as you mentioned there, Greg. And now, I don't know, it's Gio Bernard and who else is back there? I'm not even sure who the backup running back is these days.
In the backfield,
Yeah.
I know they've been trotting a couple other guys out. Their name escaped me at this point. But the Giants' wins this year, they were 10, 4, and 1, right? So combined, you're at about 15 points, right? So the fact that they're laying the 5.5 or 6, wherever you're getting, I think they're telling you that essentially, like, hey, this is kind of a gaudy number for such a bad team, and I think the situation factors huge into that. Is that it's I think a pretty inflated number for a bad team on the road, and I think there's definitely a reason for that. So at no point are you going to feel comfortable taking the Giants in this situation. I feel like that's a great time to take them.
I think, and there's one other thing that I just want to point out here, because you mentioned it on the road. Believe it or not, the Giants have really good numbers against the spread on the road. Now, granted, most of it is like as an underdog. It's over the last couple of years, but it was something like, I want to say it was 17-4 against the spread on the road, something like that. And again, that's an underdog spot, a very different situation here than when you're the favorite. But if you just look at the trend line on the Giants, I think it has been going up all season. And if that can continue off a bye week, I think Joe Judge is the type of coach, based on what I've seen this year, that I want to have him coming off the bye week. One other note, they did fire their offensive line coach, Mark Colombo, who they brought in this year. I think there was a difference in philosophy. But the offensive line, I could go either way on this one. I think I've heard a couple different things. But that offensive line has been playing well ever since that. I saw it on that Monday Night Football game against the Buccaneers. It just has looked like a different offensive line. So I'm hoping that they were getting pushed in a direction that Colombo didn't want to go, and that it wasn't Colombo who was pulling them in that direction, and they're saying, no, we want to go back to doing it this way. But I'm pretty confident in the things that I've seen from Joe Judge so far this season. So I think I've said his name enough times during this podcast, so let's move on to the next game for this week here.
It's an interesting statement, though, that they had a difference in philosophy. Like, is Colombo somehow insistent that he doesn't need to protect the quarterback, or like
maybe it was like a zone blocking scheme versus I don't know.
All right. Let's move on. We got other. The people need more picks.
Yes, one more game. This is it. This is the last game we have on our slate for this week. The Buffalo Bills hosting the San Diego. I have it written down here. Los Angeles Chargers here. Right now, the Bills. It's all the way down to 4.5-point favorites. This one opened at, I believe it was 6. So last week we told you to hold your nose with the Jets. And when you look at the stats of that game, there is absolutely no way that should have been a one-score game. There was one possession where the Jets were just driving down the field, and I felt like every play for the Chargers was a defensive pass interference or defensive holding. And I was like, this is the best offense the Jets have had all season. But listen, a cover's a cover, and we don't apologize for that. Actually got all the way down to 6. I was really hoping, Greg, that they were going to return that kick after the Chargers took a safety. So Chargers were up 8, just a little bit of time left on the clock, and they end up taking a safety with about a second left, and they have to kick to the Jets.
Just for poor execution to get Anthony Lynn fired just right on the spot.
There you go. There you go. And that is exactly why I like the Bills this week, right? I think the Chargers are a little bit of a darling right now because they've been close in so many games. I think they're the only team, they in Pittsburgh are the only team to not lose a game by more than one score. And they consider 8 points. I think that an 8-point loss is considered one score this season, which is incredible to me. But I think it speaks to a couple things. One, obviously, yes, Justin Herbert is talented. 2, I don't think their schedule has been that outrageous so far this season. And 3, I think they're going up against one of the toughest opponents they're playing. I think the Bills are still underrated for some reason. And I'm getting Anthony Lynn off a regular week against Sean McDermott, who's got an extra week to prepare. Again, I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. They're coming off that Hail Murray loss to the Arizona Cardinals. Their offense has been one of the best offenses in the league, and I think you give him, McDermott, an extra week to prepare. I think he might be able to confuse Justin Herbert a little bit this week and limit him. So for that reason, this line has already moved from 6 to 4.5. I say you got to go with the Bills or pass on this one because if you wanted the Chargers, you're too late. And I think that this week with the Bills going home is a nice spot for them. I think the Bills are still underrated this season. I mean, what do you think, Greg?
I couldn't agree more. I think both the head coach and the quarterback are playing well. I think they would get a lot more street cred, if you will, if that's what you want to use, if they would have indeed won that game against the Cardinals. Instead, all of the love went the Cardinals' way, and the Bills just kind of went quietly into their bye week, and now they've got to pull off a couple of big wins here. So I like what I've seen out of Herbert, but he's not winning games, right? And I think coaching definitely factors in. So he beat the Jets. That's
exactly. That's the thing. That's the thing we're celebrating.
Right. Exactly. So
you're supposed to beat the Jets. It's like that Chris Rock skit. You know that Chris Rock skit? I take care of my kids. You're supposed to take care of your kids.
Yeah. Well, and I think he's supposed to put a couple of balls in the end zone, which is what he will do, which will contribute to the over. So I'm going to you like the Bills. I like them as well. I'll go with you on that. But I'm going to be on that over there. So it's 52.5. I'll take that straight. But that's going to be the second end of the tease. So it's going to be 45.5 on the Bills over, and then the Giants plus 1.5. But I really like, basically both of those teams. You've watched a lot of their games. I like their ability to kind of go back and forth and score against one another. And quite frankly, in a higher scoring game like that, I don't have any issue with laying 4.5 points, especially at home there, because I do think this could be the game where Buffalo puts them away by a good 11 to 14 points. And if they're doing that, it's probably like 35 or 38 points by Buffalo. And then you still have the Chargers in the 21 to 24 range. So it takes two teams to hit the overs. We've said this a million times. So we're not getting there if the Chargers can't do their part. So I like them to be in the low to mid 20s.
I love it. There's one other thing here. I'm looking for a stat, and of course I'm not going to find it. But I think that the Chargers were something like, like 1-12 facing a team coming off the bye. against the spread. So I think if that doesn't talk about coaching, right, because that's when coaching plays up. We know how good Andy Reid is coming off a bye. Anthony Lynn might be as bad as Andy Reid is good. We saw the first domino to fall here with Matt Patricia getting canned today by the Lions. I wouldn't be surprised if Lynn is the next coach to go. I think we've laid out all the reasons here. Buffalo's D has something to prove.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
They were being soft. I was trying to think back from last week, by the way, because the Andy Reid off the bye didn't hit last week, but the over did.
Yep.
And I was wondering if we got that on tape last week, because I was saying the over. You got to pick the over. I couldn't find you saying I can't find the stat, of course, because you kept asking me for that stat. And I was like, Joe, I don't have it, but I know it.
Yeah.
So I don't need to reference it from somewhere. I just know that it's good. Just go with it.
By the way,
grab that.
Teams since 2008, I found it, coming off their bye week, playing the Chargers, a perfect 10-0 coming into this year. The Jets made it 11-0. Think about that. So, let's go, Bill. Circle the wagon.
Well, let's go Buffalo.
All right, Greg, you got to go watch the annexation of Puerto Rico. So anything else before we go this week?
No, sir. Gonna go enjoy that and root for a couple of wacky college overs. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day.
Hey, sounds like a good Saturday to me. So let's recap one more time for the listeners here. This week, we like the Titans +3. We like the Giants -6. Well, I'll take them -6. Greg's going to take them as part one of his teaser. He's going to go +1.5 there. He's got it at 5.5. I like the Bills laying 4.5 as they play host to the Chargers. Greg is on that as well. He likes the over in that game. Two ways. He's going to take it 52.5, which is the number, and he's also going to take it in his part two of his 7-point tease there. He is on the under in Denver and New Orleans, and also likes the Cincinnati team total under 19.5. I think that wraps it up. I miss anything?
No, sir.
All right, everybody. Remember, as always, it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether or not you cover the spread. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wingfoot Locks, brought to you by Wingfoot Sports. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you next week.